In 1961, a Soviet geologist named Viktor Aksinov was assigned to oversee the demolition of an abandoned research outpost deep in the northern Urals. The outpost was small, just 9 rooms, built in the wake of the Dyatlov Pass incident 2 years earlier. Officially, the station had been set up to monitor weather conditions. Unofficially, it was built to watch the mountain. The hikers had died horribly, half-dressed in sub-zero temperatures. Tents slashed open from the inside. Massive internal injuries with no external wounds. Radiation on their clothing. Tongues missing. The Soviet government called it an accident, but they built the outpost anyway. When Victor arrived, he was given 3 things: a key ring with 9 labeled keys, a folder of redacted reports, and a warning: demolish everything. Burn the blueprints. But whatever you do, don't unlock room 9. He didn't ask why. Orders were orders. Rooms 1 through 8 were normal. Dusty cots, broken equipment, maps and logbooks, most of them water-damaged or half-burned. A few strange notes. It only moves when you aren't looking. Something came back with the bodies. Room 9's door was heavy, sealed from the outside with a thick steel bar, and cold to the touch unnaturally cold. The key labeled 9 was taped over with a strip of cloth and red wax. He ignored it for a while, but on the 3rd night something changed. His generator failed. His compass spun, and he heard footsteps, not outside in the snow, inside the walls. He tried to leave the next morning. The outpost had no door anymore. Just 9 rooms. No entrance. No exit. Only doors that led deeper. And every one of them had a number. When he finally opened room 9, it was empty, except for a mirror on the far wall. But the reflection wasn't his. It was of a man ragged, frostbitten, with empty eye sockets standing just behind him. He turned, nothing there. He turned back to the mirror. Now there were 9 figures behind him, each wearing hiking gear, each with gaping mouths, each watching him, and they all whispered in a language he didn't know, except for one word repeated over and over: Dyatlov. He tried to smash the mirror, but it cracked outward like something had hit it from the other side. They found the outpost years later, empty, buried in snow. But when they opened room 9 again, they found a 10th key on the floor, unlabeled, and on the wall scratched in Cyrillic. It was never the cold that killed them. It was the door they brought back open.
In 2023, a group of graduate archaeology students from UNC got permission to spend the summer excavating the original site of Roanoke Island. The project was unofficial, half-funded, and mostly dismissed. Too many expeditions had already combed the area. There was nothing left to find. But on their 3rd week, just as a storm was rolling in, one of the students, Leah, uncovered something strange. A trapdoor, buried beneath a collapsed cabin foundation, reinforced with old English iron nails, centuries rusted. It wasn't on any map. No one had ever mentioned an underground structure. They opened it. The smell that came out was wrong. Not rot, not soil, just old, stagnant air that hadn't been breathed in hundreds of years. The space below was a chamber, circular, carved entirely out of packed clay. There were markings along the walls. Not English, not Algonquin, not anything they could recognize. And in the center, a single object. A tree stump, pale, twisted, still wet, and carved across the top in deep, blackened grooves. Croton. They joked at first, called it a ritual space, took pictures, cataloged the find. But that night, Leah didn't come back to camp. They searched the woods for hours, calling her name, but found nothing. Only her phone, lying on the forest floor, camera still open. The last photo. The chamber. Only now, the stump had grown. Taller. Fresh branches. And at the base, something pale and human-shaped, half sunken into the roots. The next night, another student disappeared, and the stump grew again. They tried to flee the island, but the ferry never came. Phones died. Radios hissed with static and faint whispers. The forest grew denser around their camp. Trees began appearing where there had been none. And one by one, each night, the tree claimed someone else, until only one student remained. He made it to the shore, built a raft, drifted out into the Sound, starving, sunburned, delirious. A fishing boat found him days later, naked, mute, covered in carvings. The word Croton burned into his chest, not tattooed, not cut. Grown. When authorities investigated the camp, it was gone. No tents, no equipment, just a clearing in the trees, and, at the center, a large pale tree with twisted branches, surrounded by 9 small mounds of freshly turned soil. They closed the case, called it exposure, hysteria, misadventure. But the locals say the tree's still growing. And on quiet nights, if you stand close enough, you can hear it whisper in voices not heard since 1587. We are the colony.
1912. The RMS Titanic is days into its maiden voyage across the Atlantic. Wealth, pride, and engineering genius float on the cold ocean like a god's triumph. But not all aboard believe it's unsinkable. Third-class passenger Maeve Callahan, 19 years old, Irish, quiet, traveling alone. She dreams every night of water, of screaming in the dark, of footsteps pounding in corridors that go on forever, of doors slamming shut just before she's pulled under. She chalks it up to nerves. But one night, Maeve wakes at 3:04 a.m. Not from a dream, but because something is knocking from under her bed. Not hard, not fast, just slow, deliberate thuds, like someone trapped beneath the floorboards. She pulls the bed away from the wall. The knocking stops, but on the wooden slats beneath, someone has carved a word in jagged, uneven gouges. Below. She tells a steward. He waves it off. Third-class passengers are already treated like cargo. A girl with a nightmare doesn't get attention. But things get stranger. Other passengers whisper about sounds in the night, doors opening by themselves, flickering lights, children sleepwalking to the lower decks with blank stares. One man is found on the cargo level, muttering. She's not sinking. She's returning. Maeve starts exploring the lower decks, following the strange knocks and whispers. She finds a hallway that doesn't exist on any map. Stone walls instead of steel. Cold air that smells like wet earth. At the end, a door made of iron, rusted, ancient-looking, completely out of place on a modern ship. Scratched into the surface. Do not open. But it's already ajar. Inside, an empty room. Except for the floor, which is wet, as if something just left. She stumbles back. As she turns to flee, she sees someone, herself, reflected in a pane of glass. Only older. Mouth open. Eyes black. Drowning. She wakes on the floor. It's morning. The hallway is gone. That night, April 14th, 11:40 p.m. The Titanic strikes the iceberg. But down in steerage, hours before the impact, people swear they already heard rushing water. Maeve is last seen heading back toward the hold. Witnesses say she wasn't running away. She was walking calmly, whispering to herself. One fireman says she looked him in the eyes and said, "It has to sink, or it wakes up." Maeve is never found. And deep beneath the North Atlantic, in the wreckage of the Titanic, there's a door no one can explain, covered in rust, still sealed. And every year on April 14th, deep-sea sonar picks up tapping from inside the hull. Just 3 knocks.
It was a bitter October evening when Sarah moved into her late grandmother's cottage on the edge of the forest. The trees outside were skeletal, clawing at the sky. And the house groaned like it remembered things Sarah didn't. The first night was quiet, save for the wind whistling through the chimney and the occasional creak of the old floorboards. She had just drifted off to sleep when she heard it. Knock. Knock. 2 slow, deliberate knocks at the front door. She froze. It was nearly 3 a.m. No one should be out here. She tiptoed to the door and peeked through the peephole. Nothing. Just the trees swaying in the moonlight. She waited a moment longer and then went back to bed, uneasy but too tired to think. The second night, it happened again. Knock. Knock. Same time. Same slow rhythm. She checked again. Still no one. This time, she left a note on the door that read, Please do not knock so late. It's frightening. The third night, she didn't sleep. She sat in the dark living room, a heavy flashlight in her lap, waiting. At exactly 2:59 a.m., the door creaked slightly, as if touched by wind, and then knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks. Not 2. She bolted upright, heart hammering. Slowly, she crept to the door. The peephole revealed nothing. She opened the door. No one. But the note was gone. In its place, written in what looked like mud, or something darker, were the words, "Thanks for the invitation." Behind her, the floor creaked. But she hadn't stepped back inside yet.
After the breakdown, Jonah's therapist recommended isolation. A cabin deep in the woods, no internet, no phone, no distractions, just silence, healing. Jonah agreed. The doctors called it hallucination-induced paranoia, but Jonah knew what he saw. The flickering shadows, the whispers at night, the mirrors that didn't reflect correctly. Whatever it was, it followed him. The cabin was simple. 1 bedroom, wood stove, a single mirror in the hallway, already covered with an old sheet. Good. For the first 2 days, nothing happened. He read, he wrote in a journal. He slept through the night. But on the 3rd night, he awoke to the soft sound of scratching. He sat up in bed, heart quickening. Scritch, scritch. It was coming from the hallway, from behind the mirror. He waited until morning before checking. Slowly, he peeled the sheet away. The mirror was perfectly clean. But for a moment, just a moment, he thought he saw something in the reflection. A figure standing behind him. But when he turned, the hallway was empty. The days passed. The scratching came back, louder, closer. Sometimes it sounded like breathing, sometimes like faint laughter. He stopped sleeping. He wrote frantically in his journal, trying to map the noises. Where they started, how long they lasted. He started dreaming of the mirror dreams where he stood in front of it, unable to move as something behind the glass slowly mimicked his every gesture, then stopped matching him. One morning, the mirror was uncovered again. He was sure he'd covered it the night before. He stared at it, trembling. His reflection stared back and winked. He screamed, throwing a blanket over it. He locked himself in the bedroom, barricaded the door with furniture, and didn't come out for 2 days. That was when the knock came. "Mr. Gray?" A voice outside. "Jonah Gray? It's Dr. Alvarez. We've been trying to reach you for weeks. Please open the door." He refused. The next voice was his sister's, then a police officer, all begging him to come out. He stayed silent. No one was going to trick him. Finally, the door was broken down. They found him huddled in the corner of the room, dehydrated, terrified, muttering about the mirror. But there was no mirror. Not in the hallway. Not anywhere in the cabin. Just old hooks on the wall where one might have hung once. His journal was full, hundreds of pages written over 3 weeks. Old drawings of mirrors. Of faces that weren't his. Of eyes watching from the glass. He's safe now. In a facility. He's been diagnosed. They say it was all in his imagination. They say there was never a mirror, but every night Jonah dreams of the